Who was that?
Right, okay.
That's my computer bird.
Okay, so hello everybody. Hello Harriet. Oh, hello Mendy and Sheila. And to Mario.
As Ruby said you could.
You're making a good habit of this, I see. So that's nice. And oh, we have David Sturman. Nice to see you. How are you, David?
Very well, thank you, Rabbi. Thank you.
Ah, Sandy. How are you, Sandy?
Good, good.
Okay, so let me move my phone. I see we have somebody called iPhone. I'm not sure who that is. How's Kate, Mike? How's Katie?
Katie, the rabbi wants to know how you're doing.
Ah, hello, Dory. How are you?
He says good, good.
Okay, so I'm going to put everybody on mute, and we will start the share. So let's put everybody on mute. Mute all.
Don't mute me.
Right, you should all be able to hear me. So if you can hear me, you can give me a thumbs up. So good, so you can all hear me. Right, so tonight I want to do the shir in, I suppose you can say, two parts. The first part, I want to talk a bit about last week's parsha. And then the second part, I want to talk about some of the laws relating to the period known as the 3 weeks of mourning, which start certainly for Ashkenazim on Shiva Asar Tammuz, the 17th of Tammuz, which is on Thursday. It's a fast day for those who are physically able to fast. And we'll talk a little bit about that, what the day means, what it's about. We'll get to that in the second part of the shir. The first part, I want to talk about Billams' donkey. Last week we had two parashiyot. We had Chukas and Balak for the first time in 12 years, so we didn't get a chance to talk much about Balak. But also, I keep saying this as like an introduction to the parsha. If I want to speak about last week's parsha, that you can do the mitzvah of Havdalah until Tuesday night. But till Tuesday night still has some connection to the previous Shabbat. So therefore, it still has the parsha of the week, so I can get away in a parsha shir by talking about last week's parsha. In fact, the title of the shir is not parsha of the week, it's just parsha. So I suppose I could speak about any parsha without anybody having any complaints about me. Not that anybody chas v'shalom would have any complaints about me, but then again, I suppose we'll see when the votes come in to see whether you've agreed to hire me as your rabbi. I don't know how many people have complaints and how many people don't have complaints, but we'll see that in a few days. Okay, so I've got a couple of things to share. So let's see, let's get this working. Let's share, where is it now? Share screen. Let's see, the screen that I want to share is this one. Hold on, I want to switch to Guide for the Perplexed. Right, so hopefully on your screens, you should see Sefaria Guide to the Perplexed. Let me get rid of the top. There we go. Right, so for those of you who have been a regular at my shiurim, my Monday night classes over the last few months, will know that we've had a little bit of a theme that has developed. In Bereshis, when we were talking about the prophecies of Abraham and the Mount Sinai revelation by God, we've spoken many times about the famous view of the Rambam. Maimonides in Guide for the Perplexed says very clearly, hold on, that nobody ever sees humans never see God, they never get a prophecy in the physical world. Let's see if I can find it in the Rambam. Here we go. We have already seen, right? I'm going to highlight it. Okay, so we can see. We have, oh, it's gone. Okay, hold on. I just got rid of it. Let's go up. Right. I need not explain what a dream is. Where did it go? The three, okay, so basically his view is, hold on. Where did it go? I just had it. That nobody ever, according, okay. Oh, why am I at 33? I'm all the way back at 33. No. Part 3, part 2. Let's go back to where we were. 42. Right. Here we go. We have already, here, we have already shown that the appearance or speech of an angel mentioned in scripture took place in a vision or dream It makes no difference whether this is expressly stated or not. This is a point of considerable importance. In some cases, the account begins by stating that the prophet saw an angel. In others, the account apparently introduces a human being who ultimately is shown to be an angel. But it makes no difference, for it's the fact that an angel has been heard is only mentioned at the end. You may be rest satisfied that the whole account from beginning describes a prophetic vision. Right? And it goes on to say in the vision, they either see or they hear whatever they see. So the Rambam's famous opinion is that prophecy is not in this world. In the realm of what we live in this world, the only person who ever was awake and had all his faculties about him and had a vision is Moshe Rabbeinu. That's one of the 13 principles of faith, that Moshe Rabbeinu saw the angels, he heard God like I'm talking to you. I was about to say like I'm hearing you, but you're all on mute, so I'm not hearing you at all. But be that as it may. And every other prophet all had some sort of a dream. They went into a trance, which is why I've told you in the shul, if you ever see me going into a trance, if you ever see me, please don't wake me, because I may be having a vision and I don't want you to cut it short. So that's the famous opinion of the Rambam. And he says that the revelation of Har Sinai also took place in some sort of a dream. We're not going into that now. You can see my YouTube videos on this. Parshas, if you go to my YouTube channel, you'll see that we talk about it. You'll see our YouTube video before Shavuos entitled What Was the Revelation of Sinai? You'll get a full description. So basically, that's his famous view. And of course, many other people argue and say no, that when they see an angel in human form, they see him real. And people really experience prophecy. And Abraham and Jacob and all these people, they saw and heard real things. So that is the big debate amongst, maybe you can call them the philosophers, right, of Yiddishkeit. So the question then is, what about Billams' donkey? If you look in the Torah, it says, Bilam was riding on the donkey saw the angel, he squashed Bilam's foot against the wall, and the next time he scraped it, next time he just stopped. And he lay down before, and Bilam got so angry, he hit the donkey. Then it says, Vayiftach Hashem es piha also. God opened the mouth of the donkey, and the donkey started speaking to Moshe. So the question is this real? And then obviously Bilam talks to the angel. So the question is, did the donkey talk like I am talking to you, like they do in the Disney movies, right? All the animals in Disney movies talk, or was it a prophetic vision? So if you look, this is the Mikros Gedolos that brings down a lot of the Mefarshim. So like we have done every time we have discussed prophecy and the Rambam Maimonides view, we always bring the view of the Sforno. The Sforno was a Sephardic sage, very, very holy, special sage, who wrote a commentary on the Chumash. And he's very precise. And he says, again, remember that the Matan Torah, the revelation of Sinai, was in human form. He talks about many things. He was the one who said that the rainbow, the only problem of seeing a rainbow, if you see two rainbows, a double rainbow, that's the problem, that God wants to destroy the world. That's his famous view. We've spoken about his view on Pangea before, his view that the world was brought straight, and therefore there was equal hours of day and night, 12 hours day and night. It was spring all the time. And only after the flood did God tilt the world 21.3 degrees, which is why we have seasons and unequal day and night over the world. So he has very famous views. We discussed his view about the temple. The only reason why God made a temple was after the Egel. If it wasn't for the Egel, there'd be no temple. We've discussed all of his famous views. And again, you can see all those in various shiurim of mine over on the internet. Perhaps if you're struggling to fast on Thursday and you need to keep yourself occupied, you can go through and listen. You can have, what's it called, where you have a marathon movie night where you watch all the episodes in one go. Well, you can't tell me because you're all muted. But people do like a run through, they have popcorn. Oh, you won't be able to have popcorn on fast day. But anyway, you can do a movie-thon and go through all my my shiurim and you can hear about it. So he says again, very clearly, let me read it to you. When it talks about the donkey, very clearly, Vayiftach Hashem es piha also, God opened the mouth of the donkey. Nosan bo koyach ledaber, he gave the donkey the koyach, the power to speak. Why? That it should make Bilam do tshuva. Right? Whoa, the donkey's talking to me. Donkey's telling me off. We'll discuss a little bit more about that later on. Like somebody speaks to his friend. Sforno is very clear. The donkey spoke in real life, in this world, in this realm. And you have many other people. The Ibn Ezra says exactly the same. He says again the words Ki'asan Dibra, that he spoke like human would speak to a human. So again, we see definitely there are opinions that, and that's what it looks like, right? That the angel, the donkey spoke in the human realm. But let's see what the famous opinion of the Rambam is, Maimonides. So he says, again, got it, I had it before, let's see, chapter 42, it's in the middle here. Oh, I've gone too far. Why am I back in 33 again? How did that happen? Sorry about this. Maybe the angel from Bilam doesn't want me to talk about it, so he's trying to stop me like he stopped Bilam and try and cause me issues. Anyway, okay, let's try and go down without it running off on me. Okay, you know what? Let me try and get rid of this sources at the side here. Let's get rid of that. That might be help. Hold on. Let's get rid of this. That might help. Right. Let's hope it won't jump on me now. Okay. So again, here, here. Right. It says Abraham was only spoken in a vision. The same holds as Jacob. And a man wrestled with him. This took place in a prophetic vision, since it's expressly stated in the end that this was an angel. Right, and the God angel said to him, that follows the description how it came to pass, where, here we go, and angels of God met him. The wrestling and speaking was entirely a prophetic vision. Again, that which happened to Balaam on the way, which is our last week's parasha, where the donkey spoke to him, and the speaking of the ass took place in a prophetic vision. Since further on in the same account, an angel is introduced as speaking to Balaam. So you see clearly the Rambam says clearly that the donkey did not speak in real life. There was no real speaking of the donkey. It wasn't like the movies where Bilam is riding and all of a sudden the donkey says, oh, hello, Bilam, how are you? By the way, why have you hit me 3 times? According to the Rambam, this was a prophetic vision. And we'll discuss a little bit more later how that worked, when this was. But according to the Rambam, it was a prophetic vision. So you see the Rambam again follows through that there was no such thing in real life as prophecy. There's no such thing as talking to angels. Every time it says angels, it's always in a prophetic vision. Okay, so that fits in with the Rambam, but we have a big problem with this. Big problem. And I shall warn you, I've not yet seen a proper, I have not yet been able to find an answer. Here's the problem. Those of you who did Pirkei Avos last week, and I must admit, when I was going through Pirkei Avos, I was doing it with the explanation of the Rambam because we're at home now. I've got more time. And I thought, oh, let's go through the Rambam's Pirush. It's at the back of the Gemaras. If you have a Gemara, Avodah Zarah, at the back, you have the whole Pirkei Avos with Rashi, Rabbeinu Yonah. It's really awe-inspiring to go through Pirkei Avos with those commentators. There you have the explanation of the Rambam. The Rambam wrote a book on Mishnayos called Pirush HaMishnayos. That was his explanation of Mishnayos. So those of you who did the Perek 5 last week know that one of the Mishnahs said 10 things were created on Erev Shabbos just before sundown, after Adam ate from the tree of life, and God punished him and kicked him out and made death in the world and everything else. God says, right, we need 10 more things. And one of them was the Pi Ha'ason. God created the mouth of the Ason. So let's look at the Rambam himself, how he explains this. Here we go. Also, the first human tongues were made. Right, one of the 10 things is tongues, because how do you take out tongues? With tongues. So how do you make the first ever tongues? How are you going to put the iron into the kiln or the furnace? How are you going to take it out if you've never got a pair of tongues? So apparently God gave a gift to Abraham, and he made, not Abraham, sorry, he gave a gift to Adam HaRishon, and he gave him tongues, because otherwise he wouldn't be able to make his own. So that's the thing. So says the Rambam, as who made the first ones. We have already mentioned in the 8th chapter that this is the 8th chapter of the Rambam. The Rambam wrote an introduction to Pirkei Avos. He wrote his introduction called Shmona Parakim, 8 chapters. Very, very fascinatingly interesting philosophical work on Avos about man. And if you have any time, I advise you to look into it. It's at the beginning of his explanation of Avos called 8 chapters of the Rambam. It's really eye-opening. But anyway, rather at the beginning of things, all things are happening here on the computer. Right. He placed into their nature that they should do everything they would do in the future. So God had to put them in already ahead of time, because you can't make new creations. You can't make new creations once the world is created. Like Shlomo HaMelech says, Ein kol chodosh tachas hashomesh. There's nothing new under the sun. Ma shahaya hu sheyiyah. What will happen again. Right? Protests, march, all anti-Semitism, all these things are not new. Arguments, fights, difficulties. Everything that happens in the world happens over and over again. And the same is with creation. So God had to place their nature as he would do in the future. Whether they be things that would happen constantly, that being a natural thing, or whether it be something unusual, being a miracle. It is all one regarding this. Therefore, they said on the 6th day, he placed into nature of the earth that it would sink under Korach and his community. Because obviously, the mouth of the earth wasn't used until the year 2450, 2,450 years after the world was created. So the Rambam is saying that God brought it into existence. He didn't make the mouth, as it were, but he made the ability for the earth to open up, to swallow up Korach already. And into the well, they would give water. This is the well that Moshe Rabbeinu used, that they had in the desert. He already put in that the rock would give out water, amounts of water, and into the donkey that it should speak. And so for the rest. So you see clearly the Rambam says on this Mishnah that God put into nature, what was it? He said into nature. Let's look at the words again. He placed into their nature, right? Not a prophetic vision, the ability that the donkey should speak. Now, in prophetic visions, all sorts of things happen. You don't have to have realism in a prophetic vision. So Rambam says quite clearly that God put into the nature of a donkey, or donkeys in general, that they have the ability to speak. So you have a question. In the Guide for the Perplexed, over here, he said quite clearly that Balaam's vision took here. That which happened to Bilam on their way was the speaking of the ass took place in a prophetic vision. And here in the Perish Mishnayos, he says, he placed into the nature of the earth, the nature, right? He placed that the donkey would speak. So there seems to be a contradiction in the Rambam in Maimonides. Now, I did look for an answer. There is the Yam Shel Shlomo, Reb Shlomo Luria, he explains that on matters of philosophy and science, you don't always have to agree. This is a fascinating, he said, on matters of halacha, you cannot argue with the Gemara. But on matters of science and philosophy, he held that you could argue with the Gemara, that the Gemara is not the last word on things like science and things like philosophy, because philosophy and science change. There's this whole debate about whether that is true or not. He seems to be one of the only people who say this. It's very controversial. But I wondered if the Rambam held something similar, that even though there is a Mishnah, he still felt that even though the Mishnah, when he explained the Mishnah, implies that this was a real vision, a real happening, he felt it was only a prophetic vision. Maybe he felt that this Mishnah, which is an anonymous Mishnah, followed the opinion of one person, but maybe you see many times that different Medrashim argue with each other and they disagree, and you have fights amongst the Medrash. So maybe he felt that such a Mishnah wasn't necessarily, I'm not going to say the word truth, it's not for me to say truth or not, but he may have felt that may not necessarily have happened, or there may be some other explanation. The Maharal from Prague, you've probably heard of him. He was the one who created, that was said about him, he created a golem. He created some sort of a physical being to help him out. And he said he has a famous book that goes through all the various unbelievable stories and stuff in the Talmud, and he explains them in an actual way. And he says again that Bilam, definitely the donkey spoke to Bilam. But now let's see the Abarbanel. The Abarbanel, I'm afraid I could not get in English. I couldn't get it online on English. So we'll have to go through the Hebrew. Okay. Abarbanel, remember we went through the Abarbanel a few times. He also likes to explain things literally. He likes to fit everything in. And he is the one who argued with the Rambam about the revelation of Mount Sinai. And those of you who are on my shiurim remember that Abarbanel used the word that the Rambam's view is lies. He said sheker twice. Those of you who remember my shiur on Erev Shavuos and by Parshas Yisro know that the Abarbanel was very forceful against the Rambam in that view. And he's very forceful again here. So let me try and find it. So the Abarbanel has 25 questions on this week's parsha. Right? One of the questions is, if Bilam was speaking to his donkey and he was going with two people, what happened to these two people? Did they hear it? Did they not hear it? Where were they? And if you say it's a prophetic vision, what were they doing while Bilam was having his prophetic vision? So very interesting. Let's see if I can find it. Okay. So he brings down at the beginning, I'm not going to he explains from an unknown source. He quotes that they explain, he's referring to the Rambam, and he explains other people, that when did Bilam have this vision? He had this the night before he left. I mean, he brings the sources, they quote various different nuances in the language, which I'm not going to go into now, but he says, according to people like the Rambam, and according to people like whoever it was, some other interpretations, he doesn't quote who the interpretation is, he said it was a dream. And he explains that according to them, right, their explanation is, first night, the first people came, God said to him, who are these people? Don't go. Bilam said, sorry, God says I can't go. He sent them away. Balak says, sorry, I'm going to send you more people. He sends more people. And Bilam says, wait overnight and I'll hear what God says, because God always came to him at night in a dream. So says these people, that these rabbis, that's when all of this happened. God's telling him, don't go. Then he tells him, okay, if they want you to go, go. That's all part of the dream. Him saddling his donkey is part of the dream. This whole thing with the angel fighting the donkey talking, Bilam talking to the angel, Bilam talking to the donkey, all of that was in the dream the night before he got up and told the second set of messengers from Balak, I'm going to go with you. So it's not the pshat that he was riding on his donkey, and all of a sudden he just went, and he had this vision in his head, or whatever it is. But he had that the night before when he was sleeping. That's how the Abarbanel quotes from these people. Again, he doesn't say who it is. He's obviously referring mainly to the Rambam, Maimonides, and there must be others. But he makes it very clear. Here we go. That's right. I highlighted it before. Here we go. He makes it very clear. The angel, the servants of Moab were ahead of him. So he was going on his own, but they were ahead of him. Again, the malach appeared to him in the appearance of a frightening man. So again, the Abarbanel again says it's literal, that the angel appeared like a human. He had the sword in his hand. It goes on to say that the donkey saw it, but Hashem hid the eyes of Bilam, that Bilam couldn't see it. Even, sometimes you look for things, you look and look and look, can't find it. Then eventually you find it in the place that you've looked. And the answer is because God hides it from you. It really was there, but God hid it from you for whatever reason. He wanted to punish you, he wanted you, whatever it is, to have more issues. The Gemara says if you put your hand into your pocket and you take out the wrong coin, and you have to put it back in again to take out another coin, that's considered a unit of punishment. That's how Hashem is saying, right, I'm going to give you a punishment to get rid of whatever you need, you have to put your hand in again. So looking for things extra time is also something that Hashem is working out to the letter. So Bilam couldn't see it, Hashem hid it from him. But again, the man was there in real human form. The angel took the appearance of a human form, just like the angels that came to Abraham and the angels that came to Lot were all in a human form. Real humans, looked like humans, ate like humans, and so on. And he goes on to say that he spoke, that the donkey spoke really to Bilam. And then he goes on to say, why is this? Why did Hashem make this miracle for Bilam? And he said like this, there are two reasons given. What was Bilam's power? Bilam's power was in his mouth. He could curse people. He had the power to say things and they would come true. He had the ability to change the actions of Hashem by his words. How that works again is another story. You have the Medrash says he knew the second that Hashem gets angry. The Gemara says Hashem is angry for a tiny little split second, and that second, if you say things to him, he'll listen to you in a bad way. So whatever that means again, I don't really know. But he had some sort of power with his mouth. So Hashem was telling him, you use your power, you curse Midian, and that's how Moab beat Midian. Midian beat Moab, that's right. You cursed them, you have a power with your mouth. You are perhaps the only person in history that's been able to use your mouth to such devastating effects. So Hashem wanted to say, look, I have the power of speech with me. And I can take a lonely donkey, a donkey that nobody even imagines can speak. And it's more than speaking. In order to speak, you always need to have a mouth and a voice box and that stuff, right? But you also have to have some mental cognizant abilities. You got to think what you're going to say. What am I going to say? How am I going to say it? So there's a whole process involved in speech. If you look at the beginning of Bereshit, when it says God blew into man the spirit, Ruach, he blew the neshama into man, says the Targum that explains the Gemara, he blew into him Ruach Malola. That God blew the neshama is the ability to speak. The ability to speak and to communicate logically and to think, that's all part of the same idea of speech. You have to think what you're saying, think what you're responding, how to respond. So it's all connected. That is the difference between humans and animals. So God was trying to tell him, you are misusing your speech. I can make anybody speech. I'm the one who gives you the power to speak. And I can, if you want, I can even give that power to animals. I can even give that power to people, to creatures that never normally had that power, to creatures that haven't even been given the ability to be able to speak, to be able to communicate. I can make them speak, even though it's unheard of. I already put that power in from the days of creation, the first day of creation, or the sixth day of creation, the day of the creation of man. I already put in that animals can speak. And it was also trying to tell him, you're no better than an animal, right? You are distinguished from animals by your ability to speak, right? And if you're not going to speak, if you're not going to use that ability properly, if you're not going to use your ability to speak for the correct way, then you're the same as an animal, and I'll make the animals talk too. And therefore, that's why Hashem decided to show that lesson to Bilam. And in the end, that's what happened. Bilam was God's puppet. If you like, Bilam was God's ventriloquist. Isn't that what the expression? A ventriloquist, right? I used to love watching ventriloquists when I was a kid. I tried to learn ventriloquism, or whatever it is called. I don't know. It would have been great for giving sermons and davening for the Ahmad, wouldn't it? I could throw my voice to the back of the women's section and you'd all wonder what on earth is going on, right? But unfortunately, I was never able to master the skill. But maybe it's just as well. Can you imagine the middle of Rosh Hashanah davening, you're slipping a ventriloquist, throwing your voice to somewhere at the side of the shul? Won't go down very well. Anyway, so I tried to have that ability, but unfortunately I could never master it. Not that I really tried that hard, but anyway. So if you like, Bilam became God's ventriloquist, and therefore he said exactly what God put into his mouth. And therefore, we have these different opinions. We have, of course, the opinion of the Saunders, we said the Ibn Ezra, we had the Abarbanel, that the donkey spoke in real form, and of course the opinion of the Maharal from Prague, that the donkey spoke in the human form, just like anybody else who met an angel, also met an angel in real form, right? We have stories in the Holocaust of people who met Eliyahu Novi that ran off and got saved by German officers, and he learned around that the officers had disappeared. There's some famous stories. I quoted one of them in my drasha that I gave about it in Pashas Vayera. I met Eliyahu Novi on Rosh Hashanah. Don't forget the story I told where he told me where to go, hiding in the trees. He never spoke to me, but he directed me. So people meet Eliyahu Novi all the time. The angels, you see things are happening. Not sure how the Rambam would explain all of that. Maybe the Rambam will say that Hashem planted the human to do it. But certainly in my case, it was very strange. This guy hanging about in the trees in the sky in the middle of nowhere. I mean, these developments are supposed to be watertight and rock, so the only way you can get in is literally coming from heaven. But anyway, so that's the case of the miracles that you see people. How the Rambam explains that, I'm not sure. And then we have the further explanation of the Abba Ben El, who explains both opinions, but he says that his opinion is emes, his opinion is the truth. Where is it? Where he says about, he says that my opinion is right. Where is it? Hold on. He says it somewhere. Right, he says somewhere that his opinion is true. So I thought that we should continue that drasha based on what we've been discussing over many, many weeks and many months about the difference of opinions of the Rambam. But again, we still need to work out exactly the difference between the Rambam's explanation in the Mishnayos, which is here, I believe, here, where it talks about God put in the ability the donkey should speak, and is in Guide for the Perplexed, where he says that here, that the wrestling and the speaking, that what happened to Balaam on the way of the speaking of the ass took place in a prophetic vision. There is also the Abba does go on to explain as well. I can stop sharing. They can all see my face again. If you think that's a good thing or a bad thing, tough. Anyway, so the Abba also goes on to explain that Billams, he never believed. Oh, I see somebody has sent me a message on the chat. Can I please use a larger font? Well, too late now. Okay. That he said that Billams didn't believe that God really runs every bit of everybody's life. That he thought, yes, God exists. He runs the world in general cases, but he doesn't work directly in every little instance. He doesn't have control, or not that he doesn't want, doesn't have the ability to, but he doesn't control every basketball game. He doesn't control necessarily everything that happens in life, every person that has every little thing happening to him. And that's what Hashem was saying. I can even make you see animals see angels, you see angels. I can make donkeys talk. I can do what I want, right? So don't you think that I don't have the ability to really get involved in everybody's life, in everybody's, whatever happens to everybody is completely ordained by Hashem. But that's a topic for a different share. I want to leave that side of the share there. And now we'll talk a little bit about what is happening on Thursday and the start of the 3 weeks. Right. So this Thursday is the 17th of Tammuz. In fact, let's see if we could read it inside, maybe. That might be a good idea. Let's see. No, where was my share screen? Here we go. Let's go back to the sharing screen again. Right, make it bigger font. I'm not sure I can. Right, so let's go back to the Talmud in, where is it now? Where is it now? The end of Tanis, right. Tanis, so what page would that be? 26. Let's have a look at 26 or 28. Chapter 1. Let's have a look at 28. Talks about Tisha B'Av, Hallel, new moon. Here we go. Right. Here we go. Here we go. There we go. You see what I've highlighted? The Mishnah taught. There we go. Tanis 28b. The Mishnah taught 5 calamitous matters occurred to our forefathers on the 17th of Tammuz, which is this Thursday. One of which was the tablets were broken. The luchos that Moshe Rabbeinu brought down, he saw them jumping for joy at the Egel, he smashed the tablets. The Gemara asks, from where do we derive that the tablets were broken on this day? It doesn't say so in the Chumash, it was the 17th. So we work it out. As it was taught in the Brisa, on the 6th of the month of Sivan, the 10 commandments were given to the Jewish people. Rabbi Yossi says it was on the 7th. Okay. The Gemara comments, according to the one who said it was given on the 6th, they were given on the 6th, and the 7th Moshe ascended to Mount Sinai. So he went to sleep overnight. He had one night's rest after Matan Torah. He went up on the 7th. According to the one who said the 10 commandments were given on the 7th of Sivan, they were given on the 7th, and Moshe ascended on the 7th. Again, we discussed this in my pre-Shavuot shir. You can have a look at it on YouTube. Right? And Moshe went up. Okay. Calculation is as follows. There were 24 days remaining in Sivan, right? 30 minus, or it would be 30 minus 6 is 24. Plus the first 16 days of Tammuz, which comes to 40 days. So therefore, we know Moshe was in the mountain 40 days. He came down, and therefore he saw them on the 17th of Tammuz. Came down, saw the people worshiping the golden calf, broke the tablets, as it is written. Came to pass as soon as he came to the camp, he saw the God. Right. So we see that this was the first calamitous event that happened, was the breaking of the luchos, which was a very, very difficult time. Well, we didn't know at that time we were going to get a second set of luchos. We didn't know, of course, that God was going to forgive us. God wanted to wipe us out. God wanted to destroy us. It was a terrible day. And for that day alone, it should have been a fast day. But anyway, again, the Mishnah taught that on the 17th of Tammuz, the daily offering was nullified. This was a couple of years before the destruction of the temple, not the year the temple was destroyed. It was a couple of years before that they already had no animals coming into Yerushalayim because there was a siege. The Romans were sieging Yerushalayim, and therefore no animals could come in, and they couldn't offer the daily offering. The daily offering was so special, so important, and by having that stopping, that was a terrible tragedy as well. The Mishnah further taught the 17th of Tammuz, the city walls of Jerusalem were breached. That's when they got into Yerushalayim, and that's a terrible day because 3 weeks later they led to the destruction of the temple, which is obviously something we mourn on Tisha B'Av. So that's 3 things that happened. Right, what are the other 2? The Mishnah further taught on the 17th of Tammuz, Apostomus publicly burnt a Torah scroll. Apostomus was one of the generals, and he was a very bad general, and he burnt a Torah. Burning a Torah is a terrible thing. We'd go to great lengths to protect our Torahs and so on. So to have it burnt and destroyed was a terrible time. And we fast when we drop a Sefer Torah. So therefore, when a Sefer Torah is burnt so publicly, we have to fast. And the 5th thing is Manasseh, who was one of the Jewish kings, who was one of the wicked kings of Israel. He placed an idol in the sanctuary. Can you imagine? Not just serving idols is bad enough, but to put an idol in the Beis HaMikdash, to put an idol in the Holy of Holies where we have HaKadosh Baruch Hu's. This was in the first temple, by the way. The destruction of the Beis HaMikdash was the 2nd temple, the breaching of the wall for the 2nd temple, and so on. Apostomus burning the Torah was in the 1st temple. So some of these were the 1st, some of these were the 2nd, and of course, the smashing of the luchos was well before we had any temples. So you see that there were 5 terrible tragedies. We talk about these tragedies in the Slichos. So it's a very, very sad day, and we fast. So again, let me stop share. Only those people who are physically able without having any repercussions should even attempt to fast. Those of you who have medications as well, you have to be very careful, even when we're coming to Tisha B'Av, which is a little bit more serious a fast. That one must make sure that either one must take one's medication. One needs water with one medication, one takes a little bit of water with it. But anybody who seriously wants to discuss it, I was speaking to somebody yesterday, and I told them we discussed it, they're not fasting, and it's not something that one should take on unless one is perfectly able. If you're physically able and it will cause no issues, then of course there's no just reason to say, oh, I can't be bothered. It doesn't fit in with my schedule. I've got Zoom meetings that day. I've got sisterhood tehillims. I've got to eat. I've got to have my strength. That, of course, is not the right. Or I've got to go out to business. Or I've got to go out to work. That's obviously not a valid excuse. But also for Ashkenazim, and I say Ashkenazim because Sfaradim have totally different laws. But if anybody is a Sephardi and keeps the Sephardi ways and wants to know how they operate, you can call me for guidance. But since we're an Ashkenazi shul and most people are Ashkenazim, I think we'll talk about the Ashkenazic traditions. So the Gemara, which we could have gone further on the Zoom, on the shared screen, says that the custom is we show signs of mourning. We show signs that we are in mourning. What are the signs of mourning? So we let our hair grow long, we let our beards grow long, because that's what mourners do. They don't cut their hair, they don't shave, and therefore that looks disheveled, and therefore you give the appearance of mourning, and therefore that's one of the main ways that we mourn over the Beis Hamikdash. We also don't solemnize marriages, because obviously getting married is an exceedingly happy event. Well, it certainly should be. If it's not a happy event, you should probably question why you're getting married, and is that marriage right for you? But anyway, it's a very happy time, and getting married at a happy time doesn't feel right in such a difficult time. Therefore, one doesn't get married. There are also many other customs that are not mentioned in the Talmud, such as not listening to music. Not listening to music is not mentioned in the Talmud. Some people say because the Talmud says in Gittin they shouldn't listen to music any day of the year from the Churban, but that was not taken on. That's a discussion perhaps for a different time, or maybe never, because it's too complicated and difficult to talk about. But anyway, we try always to be truthful. So if you say you may talk about it someday and you have no intention to do so, I better disclaim that ahead of time. And a lot of people don't listen to music, certainly live music, exciting music, poppy music, beaty music, and so on. However, just like with a lot of things, there are several exceptions. I have them here, but we'll say them balpeh. So, first one is if somebody is down in the dumps, if you're a little bit depressed and you need the music to give you a pick-me-up, then one is allowed to listen to music, because the whole lesson is we don't listen for simcha, but for depression we must never be depressed. Even mourning, when somebody mourns somebody and we mourn for the Beis Hamikdash and we don't have simcha, we don't have joy, but we must never ever be depressed. Depression is something that we do not encourage. Of course, it's real. I've spoken about that in the shul and so on. We must help everybody. There should be no stigma attached. We've discussed that, but it's not something we encourage, not something we want to happen. And therefore, if somebody starts feeling that way, then one, of course, can listen to music. I'm not sure if that would apply to getting married. I'm not sure if somebody says I'm depressed and I need to marry this woman. Maybe that would be mutter too. I don't know. But I suppose anybody in that state of mind will have to ask a shaila. They say also that if you're listening to music for exercise purposes, you know, people exercise and they want the music to keep them going because they need that music to G them up and go faster, to go further or whatever it is, then a lot of opinions say that's okay, so that's acceptable. Also, if you're driving in the car and you want music to keep you alert, to keep you stimulated, to keep you focused, then you're allowed to listen to music. However, if you're going to do that, I would probably say try not to listen to, you know, dancey, poppy music or whatever. Or they can't really dance in the car, although I've seen plenty of people trying to on the way, but we won't go into that now. But anyway, so one can listen to music in those cases. If you're trying to get your kids to sleep, or in your cases, your grandchildren to sleep, then you can, or maybe even some people, your great-grandchildren, then you can put music on for them to listen as well. The prohibition against haircuts applies to women as well, but they are allowed to pluck their eyebrows. Plucking eyebrows is allowed. Plucking nose hairs is allowed too. So for the women, they can keep plucking their eyebrows. There is a machlokes about shaving legs and so on and so forth. So certainly one should make sure one shaves all these areas before, and certainly the 9 days one is discouraged from doing it. But really one should try and avoid. However, it says here that if a woman has beard hairs, then a woman can shave off her beard hairs. I see some people looking at me with strange looks, but I want to say this halachas because it might be, hopefully not, of course, but just in case people feel it might apply, they should know what to do. So those are the exceedingly basics. There's also a common custom not to recite the bracha of Shecheyanu. Why? The Shecheyanu says I'm praising Hashem, please, you brought me to this time. Well, this is a time of mourning, so it seems a bit strange. You're thanking Hashem that he's bringing you to this time of mourning. So therefore, we avoid doing things that would make you recite a Shechayonu, which are eating new fruit you haven't eaten that season. It applies to things like buying nice clothes or items of clothing that give you simcha, or buying a new house, and so on and so forth. These things also are discouraged. If there are sales, and that's why all the Jewish stores have sales at this time, because that's when everyone can buy it. Or of course, if you're getting kicked out of your lease and you have nowhere to live, then of course you can buy it. Even if you're forced, if you would have to pay for an extra month that you're going in, you can also move into a new house, and so on. But preferably you should organize it that you can move in before the 3 weeks, or after the 3 weeks, or certainly before the 9 days. There are some people, like when I moved into my house, I didn't make the bracha of Shechayonu, I made the bracha on Hatoiva HaMeitiv. So if you buy a car, a lot of people don't say Shechayonu, they say the bracha Hatoiva HaMeitiv, who's good and does good. Why? So certainly in my case, when you buy a car, you use it for chesed, you use it to help other people. That's the only reason Hashem allowed me to pass my driving test. I failed my driving test twice. In England, it's a very difficult test. It's a 45-minute test, and they take you on all roads and services. I failed twice. There was Rosh Chodesh Teves, Chanukah, Rosh Chodesh Teves, right? We said, Hallel, the miracle of Chanukah, the miracle of Rosh Chodesh. I said to Hashem, if you make me pass, I'll use my car for mitzvahs. And boy, did I end up giving lifts like you wouldn't believe. All the time, so Hashem, make use. So I said, I made it. So if you invite guests to your house and you have guest sleepover, we've had guest sleepover here, phone me up, Rabbi, I got nowhere to stay, I'm coming to your kahuna for Shabbos, and they've ended up staying with no notice and stuff, so I made the bracha, I made him. That's okay in the 3 weeks. So therefore, if you want to do that, you do that. But if you have specific shilas, feel free to ask me. If you have a specific set of circumstances, again, there are all different rules and ideas that we can use to come to the conclusions, the halachic conclusions. So on that note, I see we've gone over a little bit of time. I know we started a bit late. We can continue talking about some halachos next week. For those of you, I said I'll finish and I'm going to start again, but for those of you who are going to be at our mincha on Thursday or listening on Zoom, there's this Sefer Nittig Avril, which I love, everyone knows, I keep going on, I buy them on eBay, and I bought the ones on Bein HaMetzarim for the period, and they have wonderful things, and it asks the question, brings down these modern shilas, what happens to the bracha of Aneinu if you're making a Hoicha Kedusha? You're not repeating Shemona Esrei, what do you do with the bracha of Aneinu? I'm not going to go through it now because it's a whole shir in itself, so please come Thursday, please watch on Zoom, and you will see the answer as to what we are going to do. On that note, I will unmute everybody and wish you all a good evening.
Good evening, Rabbi.
Thank you,
Thank
Rabbi.
you.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Bye-bye. Very
Have a
nice.
good evening. Oh, I see Abe Friedman is on. Hello, Abe. Oh, he's gone. Okay, hello, goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Question.
Yes, Bendy.
I find a big difference between the angels that came to see Abraham and Lot and the angel that came before Billams, because the ones that came to Abraham and Lot, the Torah calls them Anoshim. Shlosha Anoshim.
Right, yes, so it did, yeah.
And with Lot, they...
Right, they were also men, that's
You
right.
wanna
But here
do-
it calls them an angel, right.
However, by Billams, they never call them Anoshim. They call it an angel proper. So
Right,
that's really not comparable, the angels that came to Abraham and Lot, to say that it really, was in some type of vision or whatever. But by Billams, it was clear that it was an actual angel. In addition to which, the story where he rubbed his foot up against the wall, from that point on, Billams was lame. So
Right.
it actually had to happen to him.
right. Well, that's the Rambam addresses those questions about, there's other stories in Tanakh where things happen to people, and he addresses that problem, which is beyond this. But you saw the Rambam clearly equated Bilam's angel to Abraham and to Jacob's angel, and so certainly he said that it was the same idea. It was a prophetic vision, not a real life occurrence. and you saw the Abarbanel said it was in the real human realm. But yeah, definitely the Torah uses different language. That's interesting. Yeah.
Plus the angels are older.
What makes you think they were older? Oh, you
They
mean
were
because they...
older chronologically.
I see what you mean, right. Right, okay. Oh, David, did we change the time for Mincha on Thursday on the Zoom links? Did we put a Zoom link for Thursday Mincha at 8 o'clock?
Yes.
All right, okay.
All
Thank
set.
you. Okay, excellent, thank you. Okay, anybody else have any questions? No? Okay, so have a good evening. So make sure you get your haircuts and you get your marriages in, or if you want to get any quick marriages in before then, and your haircuts and everything else. And I'll see you. Well, we'll either see you on Zoom or I'll see you, Yimis Hashem, next week. So, oh, just before you leave, on Thursday for Mincha, we will not be doing laning because we're not going to take the Torah out because we're davening outside. But we will say a few of the slichos. You know, in the morning we say extra prayers in the Yud Gimel Midos, which you should say yourself. You can't say the Yud Gimel Midos, the 13 principles of faith, not principles of faith, sorry, attributes of mercy. You can't say that on your own because you need a minyan. So we're going to say a few of those in the evening. So if you want to get a feel for the fast day davening and the feel for the asking God for forgiveness, we hopefully will tap in a little bit to that during our Mincha davening. Okay, have a good evening. Oh, Mike, you want to say something?
He can't.
Well, you're unmuted as far as I can see, so you have to either try and unmute yourself or I don't know. Let me try muting you and unmuting you again. Mute?
No, it's him.
No. Okay. All right. Okay, all right. Have a good evening, everybody.
Good night. Thank
Good
you.
night.